Hello and welcome to our first video on statistics. I'm Mr. Chowdhury and today we're going to be looking at collecting data with a focus on questionnaires. And this is the first video in a series on statistics. And before we begin, the first task I'd like you to do is think to yourselves, what is statistics? So you may have heard this word before. What do you think statistics is? Pause the video and have a go at what you think statistics is. Okay, so the definition of statistics is as follows. The practice of collecting and analysing data. That's the definition of statistics. Now, this topic, this half term, what we will be doing is splitting statistics into the following categories to make it easier to understand and easier to approach. So we decided to split it like this because if you were to try and collect some data and analyse some data, this is how you would go about doing it. And so we're going to teach you like you were going to conduct some form of experiment or some form of statistical analysis. So we're going to split it up into the following. We're splitting it up into how we collect data. So that's what this presentation is going to be about questionnaires and so forth. We're going to look at how we can represent data, how we can analyze data, and then how we can interpret data. These are the subtopics of statistics as a whole, and each of our videos will fall into the category of one of these. Now, there's a key word here that you've seen multiple times in this slide, and that is data. And we need to know what data is. So data is a collection of facts, which can be words, numbers, or observations. That's what the definition of data is. Now, moving forward, we're going to be looking at data in the real world, just to give you an idea of what it is and where it comes from. So here is an advert for Olay, and here's some data here. It says, "My life has changed a lot over the years, but thanks to Olay Total Effects, my skin looks younger than ever," is what this person has said. And this is based on what one woman says, and she's probably got paid a lot of money to say this, right? So you're probably seeing this a lot in adverts. So for example, here's another one, right? We can see that this was a study. This information was collected from a study on 91 women in June and July. Here's another one, like the most popular boys' names. Once again, this was a study carried of 3,500 people in 2018. So you can see that we collect data and analyze data all the time to help us navigate the world and help us make decisions throughout our everyday lives. So here's what I'd like you to do, is I'd like you to come up with as many different ways that you can collect data. Come up with as many different ways as you can collect data. So pause the video and have a go at that, please. Okay, so here are some ways you could collect data. You could conduct a survey, you could do some questionnaires, you could do a test. Oh, that's a good way of collecting data. You could do a vote or some sort of ballot. You could do a trial run. You could make a list. You could do a tally chart. You could have a table of values. But the one we're going to concentrate on most is questionnaires, because that's the most common way of collecting data, is to conduct a questionnaire. That's probably what you thought of first when I said, how do you collect data? Now we're going to look at questionnaires in particular, and this is our first step. So what types of questions could we ask? What types of responses do we expect our participants to give? Okay. So I'll give you one example of a type of question in a questionnaire, and that's multiple choice. We might get multiple choice questions in a questionnaire. What other types of question might you see in a questionnaire? Pause the video and have a think, please. Okay, so here are some other types of question that you may come across in a questionnaire. You may have closed questions, open questions, or Likert square questions. So what I'd like you to do now is pause and try and think, what are the definitions of these type of question? If you're not sure, just wait for a couple of seconds and I will go through the answer. Okay, so multiple choice questions are where the options are given and there's usually an option for an other. So that's what a multiple choice question is. A closed question is when questions have a limited response. Something such as yes or no questions. So I'll give you a question and the answers are going to be yes or no. They're the only options. They are closed questions. Multiple choice questions can be a type of closed question. Open questions are questions where the participant or the person is not given any prompts for their answer. So it might be just a blank box where they can write anything in there, or just a line or a couple of lines where they can just write the answer to that question. For a Likert scale, you may have seen it before, but you may not know what the name of it is. A Likert scale is where you have questions where the answers are things such as strongly agree, agree, disagree, neither, those kind of things. And sometimes they're given numerical values, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about, etc. I don't know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about football? And then 1 being love it and 10 being hate it, that kind of idea. And the most effective questionnaires are ones that use the appropriate type of question for what they're trying to work out. Now, here's what we're going to do now. We are going to look at what I want to find out, and then I'm giving you 3 options of questions. So I'll tell you what I want to try and work out, and I give you 3 options of questions. And you need to decide which one is the most effective question. Which one of these questions should I use? So, for example, our first one here that we're going to look at is, I want to know how old my participants are. Which one of these 3 questions, the red, the green, the blue, which one would give me the best indication of how old my participants are? Pause the video, have a think. Okay, so let's go through the answers to try and figure out which one would be the most appropriate one. Well, the correct answer is green. Green is the correct answer, the one in the middle. This is the most appropriate version. And I'll tell you now why it's the most appropriate version. If you look at the blue question, the one at the bottom, it says, how old are you? And there's just a blank space. Now, anyone can write anything in this blank space, which would mean when we go to collect the data and collate the data together, it would give us a wide range of options. We don't want that. We want to try and group these so that the data collection becomes easier. Now, the red answer and the green question, the red question and the green question, both are grouped into boxes. However, if you're 10 years old and you're answering the red question, which box do you tick? 0 to 10 or 10 to 20? Well, you wouldn't know which one to pick, which would cause confusion. And that's because there is an overlap between each of the options. And we need to ensure that there isn't an overlap. So if you look at the green question, if you're 10, there's only one answer you can select. If you're 21, there's only one answer you can select. If you're not 30, there's an answer for you there. Whereas in the red one, it only goes up to 30. What if you're 33? You wouldn't be able to answer this question because there's no option for you. So we need to ensure that we always have an option for everyone and that there are no overlaps in our multiple choice options. Okay, so here's your next question. I want to know what my favorite subject of the participants is. Which subject did I like the most? Which one of these questions should I select? Pause the video, have a go. Okay, so let's have a look at which one of these options would be the best. Well, out of the 3 questions, the best one would be the blue question, the one on the bottom. And this is why. If you look at the first question, it says, do you like maths? Yes, no, I don't know. Now, this question is what we call a leading question. This question leads you in a particular direction. Now, if you answered, do you like maths? If you answered yes, that could mean that maths is your favorite subject. It could also mean that you just like maths. It doesn't necessarily mean maths is your favorite subject, but we can kind of guide our participants to say, at the end of it, we can say, well, everyone loves maths, when that's not really true. This is a biased question. It's a leading question, and it skews our results in the wrong way. So we do want to avoid any bias leading questions. Now, the next one, we could definitely use. We could have a what's your favorite subject and a blank space. That could definitely be an option for us. But once again, anyone can write anything in that spot. In which case, when we are collecting data, it would be very difficult when we collate the data together to make any options. It would mean we'd have to do more work. Now, with the bottom one, by giving them options and having an option for other, it makes it significantly easier to collate data. You could have picked between either of these two, depending on which one. But if we want to talk about efficiency, we want to give them the options. So here, I've not given them enough options. If I give them more options, that would make this question even better. But the idea is, for a question like this one, where we are trying to find out the favorite subject of our participants, giving them multiple choice questions with a variety of options, as well as an option for other, just in case someone doesn't pick one, would be the most efficient and most effective. Okay, here's our last one. I want to know if Mr. Chowdhury is the best teacher. Pause the video, What do you think? Which question is the best to find that out? Okay, so let's have a look at which one would be the best. And I think it would be the bottom question, the blue question, which would be the most effective to find out if Mr. Chowdhury is the best teacher. Now, you could technically use the first one. Is Mr. Chowdhury the best teacher? Yes, no, I don't know. It's very closed because some people might think Mr. Chowdhury is really good, but not necessarily the best, and we wouldn't find that information from using the first question. However, when we use the blue question, we get a better range of how good the participants perceive Mr. Chowdhury to be, and therefore the blue one would give us more information with very little extra work. The reason we would not use the green one, although it could be very effective, is because we're not concerned in what we're trying to find out about other teachers. We only care about, is Mr. Chowdhury the best teacher? So what we want to do is we don't really mind if there are other teachers that are better than Mr. Chowdhury, or people think they are better than Mr. Chowdhury. We just want to know what people think of Mr. Chowdhury. So that's why we wouldn't use the green question. Okay, so now before we finish, I want to recap what we need to know about questionnaires before you go and attempt some questions from Mr. Amerson. And that is the following things. When I'm creating a questionnaire, I need to ensure I'm not using leading questions or being biased towards anything. I need to try and be as unbiased as possible when I am creating my questions. The second thing is I need to ensure that there are no overlaps in my multiple choice questions. The participants should only be allowed to select one option in a multiple choice question, or if you want them to be able to select multiple options, that needs to be stated. And the next one is I need to ensure that I'm using the appropriate style of question to what I want to find. And that's why we did that exercise just before this one. And lastly, when I am creating the questionnaire, I need to think about the steps that are going to come after the questionnaire. How am I going to collate the data? How am I going to record the data? It's really important to keep these in consideration when creating my questionnaire and making decisions based off of the work I will have to do with the questionnaire later on. Now, hopefully that's been helpful. What you can do now is go and watch Mr. Amerson's video. If you're happy and content, you can go do some questions on Dr. Frost or on Corbett Maths. Go forth, be productive, and I'll see you in the next video.